Hello, welcome back. And today we're talking about releasing shame and rising up, rising in power. So, my notes are down here. I was up till late last night thinking about this, and it was just a transmission that came through because it's something that I've healed in myself. Because I have a story to share that happened to me when I was 6. It's kind of an intimate story, but I'm finally going to come out and share it in the hopes that if there's a girl or woman out there that this will help and show you how you can heal and move past things that have happened to you, even things that you feel have been robbed from you, then it will be worth it. So the topic today is a little different than what I usually do. This is way more intimate and personal and something that needs to be talked about because we have this side of us too. So, releasing shame, rising in power. So what would happen if we stopped feeling guilty about our body? What would happen if we stopped doing that and channel all that energy elsewhere into helping people and doing the work that actually needs to be done? So, I'll share my story of what happened and how to heal and overcome so that, it'll help anybody else who's maybe experienced it too. And if I'm looking down, it's because I have my notes. I don't think I could share all this without my notes, so I will be looking down a lot because this was a lot and it's a lot to think about and go back into. And yeah, I probably do look a little bit tired and everything, but I have to video this anyway. Because this is something that I was doing all of, last night till probably, I don't know, was it 1 or 2 a.m.? Yeah, I was really bad. But I wanted to, get this all out, and I was just writing things down because I had listened to something else that just unlocked another part of me and healed another part. And I think that's what happens, as women. We sometimes go through these, not sometimes, we do go through these cycles in the year and through life. And some of them bring a little bit more sadness and introspection and hurt and pain and all of these things. And all of that is just like a little bit of guidance to look inward and heal the things that have kind of been piling up. And so then we can release it and go back into being, the happiness and the joy and being able to bring things to other people. So that was kind of what last night was about for me. And now I'm going to share with you guys. So about that thing that happened when I was younger, I'll get into the story, but now I will say that I am not ashamed of my body. And, because God made it and fashioned it perfectly, like He did everybody else's. And He obviously liked it, right? Or He wouldn't have made it. And, it would be spitting in His face to think otherwise. And I know this is hard because a lot of us talk really negatively about ourselves, but you will not find that in the Bible. If you look at other religious books, if that's what you follow, you won't find that anywhere. He speaks wonderful, beautiful things about us. He made creation and called it good. So, going back to that, you are beautiful. I am beautiful. God made beauty. So that's why we protect it. I am beautiful, so I protect it. And it's not because I'm ashamed of it or anything. It's quite the contrary. It's like when you have gold and jewelry and all of these special things, maybe family heirlooms that are extremely expensive. You don't just, have them hanging out there on your back door outside or just laying on the public park bench or just walking around town with it just everywhere, right? No, you cover it, you protect it. It's a treasure. You protect it. So it's really a beautiful thing. And so what I had written down was, it's the same like you don't leave your gold just sitting out for everyone to see, touch, and have access to. And think of that the same with your body. You don't just allow everybody to see, touch, and have access to it. So, but I can tell you I wasn't always this way, as in the feeling confident and the unashamed part, because now we have to get into the story. When I was 6, okay, you guys are going to have to help me through this one. So we had taken a trip, my mom and I, back to India, because that's where she's from. And I had been there once before, the whole family, when I was 4, which was to meet my mom's mom before she died. And because she had cancer, ovarian cancer, which is another thing I like to talk about on this channel, is don't overextend yourself and try to be like a man, because if you deplete your testosterone levels, you will get extremely sick and have burnout, adrenal fatigue, certain things, which has happened to me in my past. And if that goes unchecked, you will develop either ovarian cancer or uterine cancer, all of the places where you make testosterone from. When you deplete it, it will cause cancer in those parts. And this is a big thing. So as women, don't try to be like a man, because you will kill yourself doing it. And anyways, I won't go into her story. Her husband had died and she had to take over this huge business back there and take care of her kids growing up and everything. So she did what needed to happen. But if you don't need to be doing it that way, don't do it. You don't want to be dying young and painful, and yeah, it was really sad. But anyways, so we were going back when I was 6, just my mom and I, because my dad had to work, so he kept my brother. And it was a wonderful trip. It was during Durga Puja time, which is their big festival of the year. It's kind of like how Christmas is for us. And it's a big celebration of their goddess Durga and how she overcame evil. So they have like the shrines everywhere, and it's this big 5-day event. It's the biggest event of the year. And it is very interesting, how different cultures do things, and it is fun to experience. So anyways, that was the reason we had gone. And okay, now I guess you can tell I'm stalling, right? Yeah, so we were at the house, and they're very wealthy. They have a big pharmaceutical business, and my uncle and his family. And so they have helpers and, like a cook, drivers, guards, all of it, and helpers inside the house. And so there was this one male helper, which I was too young to really even know to be aware of these things, which I am now. But I don't really remember exactly how it happened or how I got into that situation. But I was always with the family, so I'm not sure how I was separated from them. But it was this huge 3-story concrete house. And I was on the bottom floor with this male helper. And there was nobody else on the bottom floor because everyone else lived on the top story, the 3rd floor. And he was holding me, and this is kind of personal to share. But yeah, he was holding me, and he was like rubbing me, inside my shirt, my belly, and down farther, inside my underwear. And I was trying to explain to him to let me down because I didn't like it. I wasn't comfortable with it. I mean, as a kid, you don't even really know those parts of you really exist anyways. And I just knew that I wasn't comfortable. And anyways, I guess because I only knew English and he did not, maybe that was a harder thing to understand, to be able to let down. But that was happening for quite a while. And it wasn't, I won't call it a terrible experience. It was kind of weird because it felt good. Yeah, I don't know if that's weird or not. I don't know. That's what always confused me afterwards and then growing up, is because he actually was making me feel good in a way. Like, I guess, like, how he was doing it or where he was touching, like, okay. I know this is way too personal. I don't know how to explain all that, or maybe I just don't want to. But I hope you kind of get what I mean by that. And that always confused me, because I always felt like if something like that was happening, it should not feel good, right? So, anyways, that was always, I never understood that. And until much later in life, when I actually realized what it was, because I never told anybody. Once I got free and ran back up, I didn't tell anybody. I just remember telling Mom that, yeah, I finally was able to like communicate with the helper to like let me down, and I know he doesn't know English, but I was able to like come back up here. And I don't remember anybody making a big deal about anything. Nobody knew. I don't know why anyone didn't think it was weird that I was with male helper all by myself. I don't know. I mean, there were no other kids because my uncle didn't have kids at that time. And yeah, and I think a part of me took it in a sense of, which I've always been this way, that I always take things as if like life is doing things for me, not to me. So I don't know, in a weird way, I thought it wasn't like he was taking something away from me. It kind of felt more like he was doing something for me in a sense, or like trying to make me feel good. So I know that is kind of like a weird, warped way of looking at it, because obviously he was doing it for his pleasure. But I think that kind of saved me in a lot of ways of that mindset that I had, because it didn't really hurt me. It didn't really like take in my mind that somebody took something away from me. Even though, as you'll see, it still manifested in certain parts of my life in a weird way where it was kind of, odd. But we'll get into that. And I just realized I forgot to turn my lamp on in the back. I'll go do that real quick. Okay. But yeah, I mean, nothing happened beyond that. So in that kind of sense, like, whoever I marry, I still haven't really gotten anything taken away from me. So I'm still like good in that sense. And I'm kind of kidding, trying to make light of the situation there, but I know that a lot of girls, it has gone a lot farther, and I can't imagine like what that must be like and how you heal from that. And I won't pretend to know, because I don't. But I still feel like the tips that I'm going to share will help you heal through all of that stuff, because there are other people I know who have gone through things like that, and this is the stuff that has helped. So that you can be able to finally move beyond it and be, full and whole again. So, okay, I'm gonna see if I missed anything in the story or if I got everything. Yeah, so I've never, ever, ever told this story before, not even to family, friends, like nobody knows about it. In fact, it was just this morning that I decided to, find a good time and kind of like ask my mom about it. Like if that was something normal that happened in the culture, like if that was something that like is okay, or if that was something that was definitely not okay. Like I had stuffed it away, and I never told anyone then, and now it's been like 15 years later that I've decided to finally, be able to talk about it. I had healed it like a while back, once I figured out like what it was and what had happened and that it was not okay. And so I did heal it. I just wasn't able to just come out and talk about it to anybody. But now, I have released it and alchemized it. And that's what I want for you guys too, is to be able to release the things in your past and alchemize it, turn it into gold. So, there's also more to this. What has happened to me when I was younger is my step-grandmother on my father's side was also a psycho, if that's a good enough word. And the same kind of thing happened there too before my parents kind of figured it out and kind of ended things there. But yeah, so it was this morning before I finally talked to my mom about it. And that's because like last night, it was just kind of going through a deep night of the soul. And when you're down, you kind of, all of these dark things come back to you. And I was finally like, you know what, I'm ready to just, put it into the light, because that's where things get healed, is when they're out in the open. It's kind of like in the Bible where it says, confess your faults to one another and you'll be forgiven. And this is kind of different, but it's kind of in the same way. We're bringing things into the light when you confess something. Confessing is professing, that you kind of bring the devil out into the light, and instead of him being able to keep you under his control in the shadows. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And till I was 17 is when I finally healed all of this. And because I heard somebody talk about it and what it is, and that it's not okay, and that isn't something that just is normal and happens and everything. It was actually Mina from The Universe Guru, where she talks about her past and how she grew up, those things happening to her. And she was from the same culture that I come from. And anyway, she was like everything that I kind of like want to be, like have a beautiful family, successful, beautiful, like all these things. And she looked like me. She isn't like another like very white person with like blonde hair out there, and talking about some things that I agree with and some things that I don't. Like she has the whole Western and Eastern culture mixed together. And I was so grateful I found her, because I'd never heard people talk about any of these darker, harder, intimate, vulnerable topics before. And I'm super grateful for that. But till I was 17 and found, all this out, like what it was and all of that, I just thought maybe it was normal, and, maybe in that culture, maybe like it is okay. Like I didn't know. And another thing is my mom was always very sensitive, like very taken aback if the slightest like negative was perceived about her family or her culture. So I learned to just stay quiet about things. And and it's all healed now, and no one is to blame. And I completely get where she's coming from, because who wants someone to be questioning your culture or your family or things, So everything's good there. But we just have to, just come to terms with the fact that things sometimes just happen in life, and we grow and move on, We're not going to let something in our past, always keep letting them hold on to this part of us and keep us from living a full and happy life. No, we're definitely not going to give anybody that power, especially someone who did not good things to us, right? We don't think they affect us, because life goes on, things that happen to you when you're a kid. And even if it's like little traumas, like bullying, which can be big traumas, so I'm not saying little, or certain things that happen, or a parent blowing up, or just certain things that register in a child's mind as traumatic events. We don't think they affect us because life goes on. But these things have weird ways of manifesting, which I will get into, like how, like I didn't think that this thing that happened when I was younger would still like come up in certain parts of my life, but it did, and I'll share about that in a little bit. But some could be, certain fantasies where when you lose all the control, you want to be able to gain back the control. And some people do this through getting really addicted to food and wanting to put weight on their bodies or not wanting to put weight on, but just wanting to like eat because that's where they feel they finally have control. Anyways, that's not a fantasy part, but that's one thing where when something has happened to somebody and you see them walking around now and they have a lot of weight on them, I kind of just wonder, like, what happened to you when you were a child where you feel you need to protect yourself with all that extra, extra stuff on you. And even almost I feel they're afraid of the male gaze because maybe something happened when they were younger, and so they feel if they have all this extra stuff on them, maybe people won't look at them, or they won't get, looked at by men, or they won't feel so unsafe around men. But it still doesn't work because they still have all those fears, right? So that's a part of it. And then some could be, some weird ways of things manifesting later on in life that happened to us when we were younger. Is like, some could be certain fantasies where we, lost all the control when we were young and something got taken from us. So either some people take that to being able to want all the control in a relationship. Some people take it that way if they're like more masculine. And then if you're more of like the feminine, which wants to be able to surrender to somebody, this can sometimes come out in a weird way, in a fantasy, or not a weird, but just a different way, where, okay, I'm going to read it because I'm going to mess this up, where, when something was stolen from you, it is often you wanting, it's often you as the woman having this fantasy of wanting, when the act happens, for it to be out of your control. Because then you feel like it's all on him and you didn't have a say, so you didn't do anything wrong. So that way you feel like you're not doing something wrong. So anyways, I don't know how to get deeper into that, but I hope you kind of get where I'm alluding to with that. So there's those kind of fantasies that could happen. And it's very common. And that's where shadow work comes in. And, as a big one to helping heal all of this inside us. Because you can, of course, you can explore all of that in a healthy relationship with someone that you trust with your life. And that's a healthy way of dealing with it. And, living it out in a sense. But often if we don't heal these things and do the shadow work, we will subconsciously attract it, that fantasy type thing, in a way that we do not want. And yeah, so there's that part. And then there's also an amazing book on The Body Keeps the Score. That's the name of the book. And it's a really good one. I want to read it. I've kind of skimmed it, but I really want to go deep into it. And I've heard it's absolutely amazing. So, if you guys have gone through any of this type of stuff, definitely read the book. And, and it's about how things that happen to us, we can process it all day long through our mind, and try to heal it that way, just try to heal it mentally. But since the body keeps the score, you could process in your mind, like I just said, and do therapy, but it won't work and it won't heal and release, because actually it's the memory stored in your body. The body keeps the score. And how things, okay, I already read that part. So I'll share some powerful practices in a bit that will help you do this, and it's kind of referred to as somatic work, where you're incorporating your nervous system and your body in the healing process, so you're able to release wherever that was stored. A lot of us, which when I was younger, I would store a lot of these things, or like people getting mad, or, parents being unhappy, or things. I would store them a lot, like in my neck and shoulders. Like they were always so tight. And another place that women will store a lot of trauma and things is in your hips. And it will kind of lock you up and not make you as limber and open and curvy, the flexible, the movement. It'll make you locked instead of have that movement. And it'll make you very tight. And like when I was younger, it's to the point that it was painful to sit down. Like I would want to scream, even for just an hour car ride. I would dread car rides or trips or things like that because I'd have to sit down. And it was painful. And it's because I had all this stuff just like trapped inside me and I didn't know what to do, how to release it. Like nobody ever said how to do anything about it. And growing up, I felt like I was 90 years old, even though I was only like, a young teenager. I was only like until I was 15. Like, I was only like 15 and feeling like I was 90. And so that changed when I found somatic work without knowing it through yoga and doing stretches and opening postures and things, which helped to start releasing all of that tension. And that is extremely, extremely important. You know, being able to stretch and move and unlock where those memories have been stored in your muscle fascia and everything. So, okay. So going back to the beginning point that I was saying that I'm not ashamed of, you know, my body anymore. You know, I was going to say that it wasn't always that way. And I was going to share what happened there. You know, because I want all women to be able to stop being ashamed, because that takes up so much of your energy and focus and hurt and guilt and all of these like really negative feelings. Like, I want you guys not to be ashamed. I mean, for the most part, men aren't ashamed, so there's no reason for us to be either. I mean, there's healthy ways of going about it. Just because I'm saying not be ashamed doesn't mean like go out there like stark naked type thing. But it's just these interior things of how we feel in our body, and just feeling powerful and feeling that you are worthy and beautiful and all these things and confident. I want all of that for you. So this is to say that I wasn't always that way because of what happened when I was 6. So then at 13, which was my first kind of grown up doctor checkup, and it was actually my last one because I've never been back. The doctor was kind of like in disbelief because when he was putting his or her hand, you know, to feel my stomach, so she went like under my shirt, and I don't know what they were checking for, like if anything was tender or things like that, just to, I don't know, go for the health stuff. And she was like, "Are you cold?" And I was like, "No, I'm not cold." And so she was asking because, and this was another thing, when I started, you know, changing, as we all do around like 12, 13, my mom had gotten me these like undershirts to wear, and they were like, one was kind of like a spaghetti strap, and they were very tight, like very, like kind of thick and stretchy, but they were very tight fitting. And one was more of like a tank top. So I would wear both under my shirt. And so I was always wearing like 3 shirts, even like during the summer. And I live in a very, you know, hot part of the country, and these are all like polyester and things that don't really breathe or anything. And I would always be wearing like so many layers of like tight clothing underneath that I just felt like, okay, that somebody couldn't really like go through. Or I'd always be wearing like multiple or at least one layer of like tights, and like under, like when I was younger, I used to wear like pants and stuff. I would always wear tights underneath. You know, even till later, I was always wearing like many layers. And that was coming from that subconscious memory of what had happened, that I just wanted to make it harder for somebody to get to me if that was to ever happen again. And consciously, I didn't realize that. I just thought I was just, you know, I don't know what I was thinking. But now looking back, I think that is what it was. And, you know, that's how I tried to protect myself after what had happened. But now it's healed. You know, now I don't have to do that. I know that I can protect myself, or that I won't put myself in a situation like that, or I will be in safe places or with people or family that, you know, it won't get to happen, so I don't have to do that. Because I was always growing up, I always was like, how does somebody just like, you know, wear a dress and not have like 3 layers of tights underneath, or be wearing pants and not be wearing 3 layers of tights underneath? Like, I always was wondering, like, how are people like totally fine with just being, you know, not having to do that? And that's why they didn't have that happen to them. Or else, I feel like a lot of times girls will take it to the opposite extent, where something like that will happen to them when they're young, and then they'll start dressing really immodestly. And I feel like them trying to take the power back also, but in another negative sense, you know? And so it's just funny how these things just come up later in life and how we live it out. It's interesting. So anyways, so now that part is healed. So then when I was like 16 or so, I had always wanted to be a model and an actress, but mostly a model, because I felt they were the most beautiful creatures on the planet. And a lot of people had told me growing up that I should be a model because I'm quite tall and, you know, thin. And I never thought growing up that I was that beautiful. But, you know, they would still tell me that I should be a model, and I always would get compliments and stuff. So I always wanted to be a model, a Victoria's Secret model, to be exact. That was my dream in a perfect world. But I couldn't reconcile doing that and my faith, so I couldn't ever do it. That was my decision. But then I decided that, you know, to live by this quote that I had heard, and it was to live as if life is a fabulous movie and you are the star. So I tell that to myself every morning in this like small list of affirmations that I say in the morning to remind myself of the most important things. And that is one of them, you know, where you don't need to be a model or an actress to be able to wear beautiful things and be beautiful. Like, if life is a fabulous movie and you are the star, that means you get to pick your own outfits. You aren't getting told by some director what to wear and what not to wear. So that's even better, unless you're listening to the director as in God. And you get to write your own script. You get to be like, okay, I'm going to react to this situation this way, or I'm not going to let this situation, you know, ruin my script type thing. I'm not going to, you know, let this bother me. You know, so it becomes very much under your control, under your command, and you can make life your movie. And I want that for you. So definitely put that into practice in your own life. That has been absolutely life-changing for me. And it's really fun to live that way. You know? And another point, this is kind of a little more different. But I don't like it when I've heard some women, especially in more religious circles, which I still think they have a little ways to go when they speak like that. But I've heard someone say that, yes, you know, God is with us all the time, but I just ask him to step outside, you know, when I go in the shower and stuff. Like, it's kind of like they're saying, like, God not here type thing. You know, like, don't come in here. Like, don't see me type thing. And to me, it's kind of like from a place of being shy or ashamed of oneself. But no, God is not ashamed. And, you know, think of Narnia. This is the story that I kind of go back to, which I think is absolutely beautiful how C.S. Lewis explains this. So think of Narnia in the book Prince Caspian, about the and there's this annoying kid in there called Eustace. And because he was an annoying spoiled brat, he got turned into a dragon. And so he got turned into a dragon, and then he had an encounter with Aslan, which is like God in that book series, and who peeled the dragon skin off of him with his claws, and washed his reflection in a pool afterwards. You know, after he got the dragon skin peeled off, Eustace, you know, washed his reflection in a pool so that he could, you know, stop having to be a dragon. And so Lucy asked him afterwards, you know, you were naked then? Like, how did that go? And Eustace replied, as if that hadn't even crossed his mind before, you know, he had said, you know, it wasn't like that, actually. You know, it wasn't like that at all. It's not like here. I wasn't even aware of any of that. And I kind of feel like it's the same thing with us and God. Like it's like that same metaphor as in that story. So I hope that helped you guys. If any of you guys struggle with that too, I hope that helps. And another point that is really, really good that I was thinking about a lot last night when I was writing all this out is, you know, the Garden of Eden's fall, you know, like when they got kicked out of the garden because, you know, they ate the fruit. It had to be sexual sin, because nothing produces that kind of guilt and shame in life as that act. Whether it was now or whether it was then, nothing produces as much guilt and shame in people as that. And I think we can all kind of see that, like understand that, and that's the truth. God's not so petty as to make such a huge ordeal over eating an apricot or an apple or whatever they think it was. I can pretty much guarantee that. I can. I was watching a video a while back of an abuse survivor who, she survived abuse from her father, of this kind of abuse that we were kind of talking about, except that it was way worse. And someone shared in the comments and said something, and I was like, yes, this is exactly it. The comment was, 100% with you on this. She, referring to the person who was talking and how she overcame and everything. She was ahead of her time. So the commenter continues, as a former Christian and devotee of Tantra for the last 4 years, I have an interesting perspective on the idea of the original sin, which to me is allegorical, or allegorical. I don't know how to say that word. I don't think it was the fruit that was the original sin. I think it was the shame. Shame and fear are at the root of our loss to access of the divine. The antithesis is love and acceptance, which brings us back. Anyways, I thought that was really powerful. And I was like, I kind of wish that I could have told that commenter that it wasn't actually just fruit in the Bible. It was an actual, that kind of sin. And that is what caused all that guilt and shame. And so I hope that would make them, come back to Christianity instead of what they're into now. But anyways, I wish healing and hope and everything for that person and all the people who have gone through things like that. It is a rough thing, and it makes people leave religion because of what people have done, and it is really sad, but I completely understand. So, anyways, a powerful way to heal all of this, because I promised in the beginning I'd share how to heal all of these things. A powerful way to heal all of this is through dance. It is somatic work without you really knowing about it. It's fun and it gets you in your body instead of being so mental. Most of us are so masculinized in this masculine world where only masculine traits are appreciated, like work, getting things done, being busy all the time, hustle, all of that stuff. Whereas being a woman isn't really appreciated or seen as valuable. And that's where dance comes in, because it is somatic work. It's getting you to move your body, and in that way move things out of your body and heal. All old cultures knew this. Like Arabic dance, Indian dance, the American Indians, etc. And I was kind of learning this because I do Arabian dance, and it's very beautiful and graceful and elegant. And I was asking my teacher, because I was like, when people think of Arabic dance and they show it in Hollywood and things, it's very scantily clad and all of this stuff. And I was like, but it's from the Middle East, which is the most covered culture ever. And she was like, well, they still dance. When they dance, they do dance in their traditional wear. And it was Hollywood that kind of wanted to exotify it and came up with the costumes that they wear nowadays. But it wasn't that way. And it was also just in the women's circles. It wasn't to be done in front of men, unless your husband or something, of course. But it wasn't just to be performed in front of men for the male gaze. No, it was for the women to be having fun and making memories and spending time, or for them to celebrate certain life events, like a girl coming of age, or certain religious celebrations and things. And so she was explaining all of this to me, and then she was like, you know what, I'm gonna let you borrow a book that will show you like the history behind dance and all of that. And I was like, really? And she was like, yes. And so then I went to last class, and she gave me a beautifully wrapped pink package. She was like, I decided to buy you a new book so you can keep it. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. So this is the book, Serpent of the Nile. And so see, this is how like Arabian dance, like that's how they would dress. It's beautiful. And it's not like what we see nowadays, where you think it's extremely inappropriate and things. It doesn't need to be done, or it probably shouldn't, in front of, like a mixed audience. But it was for women to learn, to be feminine, to be in their body, to be loose and limber and move things through themselves, move the trauma out, not get tight and rigid. And, because that's another thing. I was listening to a Sadhguru, which is like an Indian teacher, and he was saying that the problem with women working nowadays and not having children young anymore like they used to is they get locked up sitting in all these desk jobs for hours and hours on end and commuting from work and back. And he was like, women were never meant to just be so rigid and sitting like that all the time. Their hips get locked. And that's why there's so much childbirth issues and always having to do C-sections and traumatic labors and everything in the West, whereas all throughout time or in the Eastern cultures, it wasn't that way. They'd be out in the fields or just with their family at home helping them, and they didn't have to have all of the medicine and hospitals and stuff. It was a natural thing. So anyway, so there's that part of it. And women have so much power here, in being in their feminine, being a woman. That's why we were silenced for so many generations, and there were the witch hunts and like all of those things, and why we still have a hard time speaking up in a good way. I'm not saying like a feminist way, but just about things like this and healing. But it's time to heal. And dance is one amazing way you can do it. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And, growing up, a lot of people, or even like till recently, it hasn't happened as much, but people still ask, like, if I was into ballroom dancing and stuff, because they're like, you have such good posture and how you move is so graceful and things. And I was like, no, I never did ballroom dance. And I actually don't believe in it because, you and a guy are like this close together, and I don't think that's good. So that's why I'm against dance in that way, personally. But these kind of dance, if you're in a women's group and there's no men around and like it doesn't, matter as in that much. You're protecting your modesty and stuff when it comes to men. But when you're in a women's group and it's just women, you don't have to be like that, be so careful and everything. And, even like in the Middle East where they wear the burqa or the hijabs and things, it isn't for just everywhere. They only wear it when they go outside the house. When they're in the house, they wear whatever, they want and feel beautiful in. And it's the same when there's like women's groups, like a party where it's just women because they keep women and men separate. They go to the party wearing the burqa on top, but then they take it off and they're wearing the most like flamboyant, beautiful outfits because it's all women and it's okay to, So that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you can be careful with the male gaze, but when you're with women, I don't see that there's anything wrong with dance. It's very healing. And because the dance, like I had explained earlier, like through the Egyptian culture, Middle Eastern, like why the dance was always part of it is because it trained girls, to be confident in their bodies, to be able to, move things through, move the emotions, move the trauma, and it teaches you to be a woman, how to be a woman instead of being a good little man. So, because that's what most of us are nowadays. We're just trying to be good little men when we can never be as good a man as we can a woman. We won't ever be a good man, but a woman will make a fabulous woman. Yeah, so that's where all of these things we need to involve the body with. It's not just a mental exercise for everything, because we are incarnated in these human bodies, so we need to involve them. And it's part of what makes us human. And oh yes, there's there's all of this dance, and another powerful feminine dance is pole dance. And you'll think that, oh, you can't say that, that's so terrible and everything. But no, it doesn't have to be for men. It doesn't have to be for the male gaze. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing, putting you back in your power and feeling like a woman. And it can be done in a beautiful way. Not for, performing or anything, but for you. Watch the documentary Strip Down and Rise Up. And that shows you the power and the healing that has brought to women who have come through all of these kind of shame and guilt and things that have happened in their past, to be able to release it and see their body as beautiful and feel confident. And it was really beautiful. I mean, if you're a guy, probably don't watch because it wasn't quite appropriate in like some of the outfits and things. But as a woman, I think you should watch it and glean the gold from it. There was a lot of good things. And one thing I really especially loved is there was this one masculine container where they brought these men in, conscious, grounded, present men, and to hold this masculine container for the women, to be able to feel and to feel like what it is like to be with a healthy man who is looking at you like he would kill for you. And I just thought that was so beautiful because it brought the healing back into it. So that was the part that really touched me a lot, was that it was so pro-healing and that there are good people out there and you just have to find the right one. And there's lots of good men out there, even though there were bad ones that have hurt us in the past. So I hope that helped you guys. I know I was kind of losing my voice, so the audio probably went down. But I hope that helped you guys. I know this was a long one. I did not realize it's 47 minutes. That is crazy. And comment down below, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.